So for today's video, I'm going to be talking about the topic of emotional eating and boredom eating. Now, this is an obstacle that comes up for a lot of clients, and it's something that is a skill that we can build to be able to notice, am I actually physically hungry, or is it that I am having some emotional hunger? I'm having an urge to use food as a coping mechanism to deal with perhaps some other need that's coming up. And the reason it's very, very important to deal with this up front and to do this type of work is that if you never actually build the skills to recognize when you're emotional eating versus whenever you are actually physically hungry, then no amount of meal plans or calorie tracking is actually going to help you to combat overeating because you're going to be using the overeating as a way to regulate your emotions instead of simply eating in accordance with what your actual bodily needs are. So, more information, more calories, and more meal plans are not the answer here. So, that's the first thing to really bed in. And once again, it can be a little bit overwhelming, and sometimes whenever we see that this type of work is actually what's going to be the way out for us, it can be quite intimidating because perhaps some of these cycles have lasted for a long time, perhaps even most of our adult lives. So don't worry about that, and please be heartened by the fact that actually recognizing the issue is the first step on the path towards getting to food freedom. So, the first step that we do on this approach is going to be noticing the urge to eat before you reach for food. Now, what I tend to like for clients to do is to rate their hunger on a scale of 1 to 10, both before and after eating. That's what we call RP eating, or your perceived fullness throughout the eating. And this is going to just get us a little bit more information around, okay, is this a genuine hunger? Now, how do we tell the difference between a genuine hunger and an emotional hunger? Well, a genuine hunger tends to come on a lot slower and be felt within the stomach. Emotional urges, on the other hand, can perhaps like spring up very quickly on us, and oftentimes they could be tied to specific cravings for specific foods, or maybe just some certain situations that perhaps are stressing us out. So important that we can identify these situations. Then, after that, once we've done the work of identifying is this physical hunger or is this an emotional hunger, then we can name the real need. There's a trope in psychology that if you name it, you tame it. So we have this trope that we can kind of calm down our nervous system by actually naming the emotion of what's going on and becoming curious around what's actually going on if we're not physically hungry. So, if it's boredom, do we have an underlying need for a bit of stimulation? So, in such cases, we have some interventions that perhaps we can do to combat that. Or is it stress and anxiety that's causing this need to use food as a coping mechanism? Perhaps it's loneliness. And if you struggle to identify what's actually going on for you, you will be able to use this emotions wheel that I will pop on the screen now. And that is a great reference and resource to be able to identify if you're not quite sure exactly where you're at within the moment. Now, Once you've identified what exactly is going on, then we're going to choose what way that we're going to respond to that. So if it's that you're bored, perhaps we do a little bit of stretching, we do a little walk around for 5 minutes. You could perhaps do a language lesson on Duolingo. You might do a couple of moments to take a break from work, to do some breathing drills. Perhaps you listen to some music, a song that you particularly like. Or then if it's some other different needs, perhaps you're very stressed and anxious. It could be calling or texting a friend. It could be doing a different task that's going to shift your focus for a little while, or listening to a podcast or something along those lines. So we have lots of other responses. Just on a final note, then, if we're finding that we're getting into a lot of emotional eating, it's not a personal failing, it's a signal from our body. And we want to try and treat this signal with curiosity, compassion, and a little bit of empathy towards ourselves so that then we can learn what your body or your mind actually wants in that moment. I hope this was helpful. You can please let me know. We can talk in coaching sessions around how we can implement some of these strategies and start the progress of getting you out of the cycle of emotional eating.